Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all. Thank you for joining us today for this another edition for the Concept Lab presented to you here by the AAC of DC, the African Chamber of Digital Commerce. My name is Vitalis Chita, and I serve as the VP Communication here at the Chamber. And I am very glad to be here today, another privilege. And with me here today is a very, very special guest. And yours always, Mr. Howard England, is here today. So let me just introduce that. Mr. Howard is obviously, and you guys know, and if you're new to Mr. Howard, he is the CEO of Acofdc Consulting LLC, based out of Austin, Texas, in the United States. And our honored guest here today is the CEO of GMOZ Trust Company, Inc., based in New York, USA. Mr. Ken Nakamura, he is the board director and the CEO of that blockchain and digital asset company, GMOZ Trust Company, Inc., based in New York, United States. You're welcome to the show here today, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Before I hand it over to our moderator, Mr. Howard, I would like to just kind of go through some housekeeping stuff here. To have this experience an enjoyable one for all of us, I would like to ask our attendees here today to use the chat feature for communication during the presentation. Please, if you have a comment, you can use that chat feature. But if you have a question as we go along, please use the question tab. You can just put your question right there. We're monitoring that tab, and your question will be brought up for Mr. Ken to answer. And if we run out of time and cannot answer all of your questions, we're going to try to, at the end of the show, go back into the breakout rooms or tables, as you call them. You can join one of those, and hopefully we can be able to have further conversation about your questions, or actually answer some of your questions as well. So please, we ask that you participate in those chats. You participate in answering the question. We want to make use of this valuable opportunity having Mr. Ken here with us. His knowledge, his background, his expertise, it's something that we can all lean in and be able to tap into some benefits. With that said, I will just hand it over to Mr. Howard, and we're going to begin the fireside chat. Howard, thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me, and welcome to you both. Today, we were supposed to have as my co-host Kate Kuo, and she was unable to make it today, unfortunately. So, she had some questions as well, and I'll try to relay those questions to you, Ken, as we go along. But before I get started, I just have a disclaimer here. I do not provide investment advice, and I'm not a qualified licensed advisor. And all the information expressed here are all informational, entertainment, or educational purposes only, and should not be construed as investment advice. So, Ken, thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to finding out some more about your company and and about stablecoins in general. So first of all, how did you get interested in cryptocurrencies and in blockchain?
Yeah, so personally, I started learning about blockchain back in 2015. Of course, starting with reading Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper. So that's my personal engagement to the first encounter to the blockchain world, right? So so GMO Internet Group has been in the business of internet for almost 25 years now, and just like how internet took away borders for communication, it looked to me like blockchain can do a lot more than just the internet. Just taking away borders for communications, take away borders for moving around assets on top of internet, right? So I started learning about it. The timing for me to really get start investing in these asset class was in 2016. The timing was just about right. I relocated to United States from Japan in 2011, and I always owned a house in Japan, which I never lived in, obviously. So, I just decided to sell my house. I had extra cash. So I took all that money and converted that into Bitcoin. And
wow.
it just happened to work out well. And, once you own those assets yourself, you just have to, learn more about it, just to get to know what the economic implications are. And, it's all about protecting your asset as well, right? So, 2016 was still considered early. It was still very much experimental. So you
It was
just
very
have to
early.
know, yeah, you just have to know what you're invested in, and you just have to know how these technology work. Otherwise, you're just blindly, throwing away your money, right? So, I sort of started from there, and I got into the blockchain, cryptocurrency space professionally, and that's what I do now.
Okay, great. So, as a professional in the space, what does your company do, and what can you tell us about GMOZ?
Sure. So GMO Internet Group is an internet and financial conglomerate based out of Japan, and we have about 100 companies affiliated across the globe. So in the cryptocurrency space, we got into it in 2017. So we had, when we got into the blockchain space, we had well, three strategies. So one was exchange, the other one being the mining, and the third piece being the payment. So in 2017, we launched our crypto exchange called GMO Coin, which primarily services just the Japanese residents. And then around the same time, we got into the Bitcoin mining space. So we were, when I got involved, it was 2017. I was assigned to be part of, the Bitcoin mining initiative. So I was shopping around for electricity. I traveled around maybe over 10 countries, just shopping around. We finally basically launched our Bitcoin mining facility in the Nordics region, because back then it was considered that they have one of the cheapest electricity price, and all of them or most of them are renewable energy in the Nordics.
So, clean energy then.
Clean energy. We were all about clean energy. We made a promise publicly, because we're a publicly traded company. We made a promise that we were only going to be using clean energy. So that was our commitment. That launched. And then finally, what I'm doing at GMOZ.com Trust Company is we're the issuer of the very first Japanese yen-backed stablecoin. And simultaneously, we've launched a US dollar backed stablecoin. So, the missing third piece is the stablecoin. Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto created Bitcoin with the hope of replacing the legacy monetary system, and potentially replacing fiat currencies, right? So we thought that Bitcoin will be used for payment and settlement purposes. However, the reality is that, it's very volatile, right? The price can fluctuate anywhere from 1% all the way to like 30% within a day or two, right?
Okay, yes,
That
right.
volatile. So, and Bitcoin has also kind of proved that it can be a good store of value, potential replacement to gold. A lot of people talk about Bitcoin as a digital gold. And, I think it's true. It's proven the market size is still small relative to the gold market. However, it's getting a lot more traction recently, right? So, we in a near term, I don't think Bitcoin will be used as a payment and it will not reach mass adoption just yet. So in
Because of
order
all
for
the
people,
hodlers, maybe?
absolutely, because I own Bitcoin and I don't want to spend my Bitcoin. I just want to hold on to it until the price starts to stabilize.
Right.
Um, so with that thought process in mind, we thought that stable coins are the best way to reach mass adoption in the payment space because you know stable coins value is stable. A lot of them, most of the reputable stable coins are backed by the fiat currencies. So one stable coin is $1, right? So it does the price never fluctuates, and it's easier to use to make payments.
Okay. So, Vitalis, did you have any questions for Ken? You're on mute, Vitalis.
What Ken? I know we're talking crypto here and everything, and for somebody who's not as technically savvy as all of you here, um, what are the global implications of cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, so I think globally, there's a global inflation coming, obviously. Not just the United States. The pandemic obviously accelerated sort of the inflation rate globally, right? So, looking at the macro economy, any fiat currencies you guys or we hold on to basically devalues over time. And if you're getting paid $1,000 a week, this $1,000 will not be $1,000 in next year, 2 years, 3 years ahead. So protecting your asset from that kind of inflation is very important. And I think cryptocurrencies. I wouldn't say like cryptocurrency as a whole. I think Bitcoin is the legacy cryptocurrency, and others, if you believe in those projects, sure, maybe you should consider investing into it. But I think having this Bitcoin and just looking at it as a store of value, it's going to be good for you. Like people own houses, people own gold, right? But and people do not own 5 houses to live in it, right? They live in one house and they own the other four just as an investment. But Bitcoin, you can move these assets around very easily, right? Speed of light, a few seconds, or the cost of moving these assets is very cheap too. So if you own a house, you can't move it. If you own a gold, you have to have it in a vault, or maybe you can keep it in your house. But would it be safe? Not really, right? So I think Bitcoin can really be, or cryptocurrencies can really be a replacement for those store of value.
Awesome. Thank you for that answer. And I just want to. I think recently, Nigeria, who is one of the highest consumer of cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin, for that matter, recently was in the news a couple months ago, where the government got in and banned, literally just banned, that transaction within the financial system of that country. What is the threat of government and other legal entities around the world to cryptocurrencies and bitcoins and the likes of it? What is the threat of that based on where the world is moving forward to at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest risk the government see is probably just they're just fearing that it can potentially replace the sovereign currencies, right? And that is part of the reasons why all the governments are looking into CBDCs, the central bank digital currency, right? So not all of them are blockchain based currency. However, They are actively looking into it because they just need to be part of the ecosystem. Bitcoin and blockchain technology is not something you can ignore anymore. And if you're just left out, and if you're not actively assessing these technologies and exploring how the government or the country can leverage these technologies, it's a huge threat because if people lose faith in in the sovereign currency, they can easily go to Bitcoin. And if there's enough merchants or places where you can actually spend and transact on top of the blockchain, you don't need any fiat currencies anymore. So that's the biggest threat to the government.
Thank you very much, Ken. Howard?
Yes. So you talked about cryptocurrencies and the role that it can play, and you talked about being blockchain based, backed. What are stablecoins? How do they work? How do stablecoins work?
Yeah, so stable coins have different formats. So what we call the native crypto stable coins are basically it's an algorithmic stable coin where they would have other cryptocurrencies as a collateral. They would peg the token to other cryptocurrencies, or they would peg the token to any other commodity. There's a gold-backed stablecoin that Paxos issues, and I think the most famous one is the fiat-backed stablecoin, which is backed one for one with whatever the underlying fiat currencies. So in our case, one is backed by the Japanese yen, and the other one backed by the U.S. dollars. So how we protect these, protect the peg, the one for one peg is we essentially, for the buyers who, people who wants to buy stablecoin, they would send whatever the amount they intend to purchase to our custodian or custody bank account. And then once we see a wire hit and settles, we would issue the exact same amount of stablecoin to the purchaser. So this is like really automated in the back end. So when the wire hits, the API lets us know that the wire settled, and then it would trigger our minting system where we would issue the tokens on the blockchain, on the smart contract, and then push it out to the wallet address.
So you mentioned minting, and if those who are familiar with Bitcoin, they understand the whole minting. You went to the Nordics to seek out cheap electricity. How are these two minting approaches different? Let's think about the Bitcoin blockchain, and then thinking about the stable coin. And you mentioned smart contracts in there as well.
Right. So Bitcoin and so our tokens are ERC20 tokens. So it's run on top of Ethereum blockchain, which is different from Bitcoin blockchain. So Bitcoin, there's a hard cap at 21 million Bitcoin, and you can only mine Bitcoin up to $21 million, and there is also a daily threshold where there's a threshold of daily mining amount, mining of the Bitcoin. So with Bitcoin, it's a totally different concept as actually us minting the token. So Bitcoin, there's all these Bitcoin miners around the globe. So they would have what we call the ASIC mining rigs, with a very high computing power. It's sort of like a size of a shoebox, and we have thousands of them lined up in a data center. So we continuously run those machines, and the first one to solve the math gets the reward as in a Bitcoin.
In a Bitcoin, yeah.
So Yeah, so that's how sort of Bitcoin works.
And
With
that's
the
all they
ERC,
do, these rigs. That's all they do is mine Bitcoin, nothing else. The ASIC
yeah,
rig.
nothing else. Yep, the ASIC rigs, they just keep on running within the facility, and keeps mining the Bitcoin. But with ERC20 Ethereum-based tokens, you anyone can really come up with their own tokens. Whether I can just call it the Ken token, right? I can issue anything. But with stable coins, because we promise to the customers, we promise to the regulators that these are always backed with the underlying fiat currency, we would never do something like issuing $1 trillion worth of stable coin without the fiat currency backing. That would basically break the peg and break
Right.
the ecosystem. So
Essentially
that's
printing
the
money.
biggest difference.
Right.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean
Okay.
the Feds can print money,
But Ken can't.
but can tokens
So
can.
what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So why should stablecoins even be considered, given the utility provided by cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin and Ethereum and some of the other ones, and why even entertain yet another stablecoin? By some estimates, there are over 200 privately developed stablecoins out there. Like, why another one?
Yeah, so you obviously the U.S. dollar-backed stablecoins are very popular, and that basically, over 90% of the stablecoin market cap is U.S. dollar-based stablecoins. So, moving around money is always a challenge through a legacy system, right? So, like FedWire, SWIFT, or ACH. It could take days, and it also costs a lot of money. I think stablecoin is a very good utility to make cross-border remittance, and I think having different stablecoins that are pegged to different currencies is very important, because not everyone uses US dollars, right? For example, we're owned by a Japanese company, and we transact a lot with our, GMO group companies, which are based in Japan or based out of Thailand or based out of Vietnam. And for us to move money around, it's not always US dollars. We spend in JPY. So, being able to move these money around in a stablecoin format, makes the business very efficient. And not only for businesses, when there's a world where the merchants can accept any types of cryptocurrencies, you don't even have to convert it back to fiat currency. You can just basically scan a QR code, spend with the cryptocurrency of your choice. And we truly believe that stable coins are the ones people will start utilizing in the near future. Like, if you look at the news, Visa card, they're assessing, US dollar pegged stablecoin settlements. They've already started the pilot program, and, PayPal, Venmo, Square, all these fintech companies getting into this space. And I would assume they would not only support Bitcoin payments, but they would probably start supporting stablecoins and other cryptocurrencies. And I think that's where the market is going.
I see. So the middleman is also getting involved as well. So we should expect more than 200 plus.
Yeah,
Stablecoin.
they are. They are. And, if you're just looking, if you're interested in participating in the crypto blockchain ecosystem, you don't always have to go to Bitcoin first, right? So it really depends on your risk appetite. But if you don't want to be exposed to this high price volatility of Bitcoin, I think stablecoin is a good entry point, and it can sort of bridge the gap between the blockchain ecosystem and the legacy financial system.
Got it. So, Vitalis?
Thank you. So that's a wealth of information there. And I just want to welcome the folks that are joining us now. This is the Concept Lab fireside chat, and we're speaking with Mr. Ken Nakamura, and he is the board director and CEO of the blockchain and digital asset company GMO Trust Company, based out of New York. And to ignite that conversation, here is also Mr. Howard England. He is the technical advisor here at the chamber. And so I would like to encourage you, please, to keep sending in those questions. Use the question tab there. I don't know wherever it is on your screen, but on mine it's on the right hand side corner. Please send the questions in. We'll get them to Ken, and I know he's going to do his best to answer them. So thank you again for joining us. And Ken, if you don't mind, there's the whole idea of cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, everything. I mean, it's just exploded in the last few years. But still, we cannot just go without acknowledging the fact that some people are still skeptical about cryptocurrency, about using it. So, how can we get people to trust keep cryptocurrencies and get to use them or be involved in that whole space?
Yeah, I guess it's just more and more development in this space, and more educations are needed, because the price fluctuation of Bitcoin is mostly speculation, and the recent the past 12 months we've seen over, I think it's over like 8 times the price of Bitcoin in early 2020, right? So a lot of these are still speculative, and a lot of you know uh, I would call retail investors jumping onto this without really learning about what they're buying. So you know, I think there just needs to be more education. There's a lot of products out there where, for example, if you look at companies like Celsius Network, they're trying to be the new bank, right? So if you have your fiat currency at a bank, you basically don't earn anything. There's no yield. The yield bearing accounts in any money market right now is like minimal. But companies like Celsius, they provide a yield-bearing account where if you place your Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies that they support, they would give you interest rate of like up to 10+% annualized yield, right? So these things, they are growing at a very fast pace, but has it reached a mass adoption? Not yet, because not many people are aware of the fact that there are, yield-bearing accounts like that. So, in short, we just have to do a better job of educating people, and this is one of them, right? We're trying to educate the attendees here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's take that a little bit further though, and just kind of break it down. I'm going to bring a case here in point, which is the African continent. As you know, they just signed a free trade area, which is already in effect, right? But there are barriers, there are challenges, and one of those challenges is how do we trade when we don't have the same currency, and we're trading across border. Our banks are not synchronized in a way that we can be able to do these transactions. So in the case of we're talking about crypto here in the stablecoin, how does that come into play? What advice will you offer with this type of money transactions to the African continent that could help mitigate some of that challenges right now?
Yeah, I think first of all, I think you have to create your own wallet address, and you have to learn about how you have to manage those private keys to protect your asset, or go to an exchange of your choice. I believe in Africa there's Binance has a big presence there. I think so.
Yes.
Just creating an account could be your first step to start learning about it and start actually using it, right? So, looking specifically at, for example, Japan and Africa import and export market size, we do about $10 billion yearly, and I believe like 30% of that import and export comes from the automobile, car trading. So there's a company in Japan that creates like a peer-to-peer blockchain-based trading platform, which can facilitate all those trading activities, trading of goods activities, and they basically keep track of the logistics and letter of credits and things that are needed to execute these trades are managed within blockchain. And how they're doing that in terms of payment would be let's say the seller is Japan and purchaser is Africa in this case. The purchaser would make payments in USDC stablecoin to the seller, and then that seller would take that USDC, convert it into Bitcoin. This is because stablecoin is not allowed in Japan. They cannot convert stablecoin back to fiat currency currently because of the regulation. They would send it to the offshore crypto exchange such as Binance and convert it to Bitcoin. They would send Bitcoin to the Japanese crypto exchange and then finally converting it back to Japanese yen. So these multiple hops can be more efficient by using stable coins or Bitcoin or the cryptocurrencies, and it basically mitigates the risk of getting exposed to high FX rate. Wire getting stuck at a bank, which happens often, right? You send a wire, but for some reason the intermediary or the correspondent bank loses it somewhere, and it has happened to me quite often. So these all can be addressed through cryptocurrency payment.
Absolutely. Thank you for that great response. And I'm going to ask you a question here from the audience. And this is from Charlie Samoa. Charlie is the Assistant Manager, Oil and Gas Free Zones Authority. I think it's based out of Nigeria. He says, can Mr. Ken confirm if individuals or corporations can leverage stable coins to fund infrastructure development projects? And if yes, can he highlight how?
Good question. I think it really depends on if this project accept cryptocurrency payment. If they do, sure, why not? But they may only accept Bitcoin. They may only accept Ethereum. As long as the project is willing to accept any types of cryptocurrencies, yeah, I think so.
Thank you for that response, Howard.
Yeah, so Ken, what you mentioned earlier sounds like some of these transactions mirror what a bank would do. So, how does this differ from traditional banking? Engaging in stablecoins as a method for enabling a transaction.
Yeah, so the technology is very different. It's basically legacy Swift system versus blockchain, right? But however, the reality with stablecoin right now is that even if you make payments or make cross-border remittance using stablecoin, and if the intention of the receivable is to convert it back to fiat currency, you still have to go through a banking system. But converting that back to fiat currency, the cost of doing that is much lower than making a wire transfer through a Swift system. But when there's a world where you can make payments in cryptocurrencies, you don't even have to convert it back to fiat. So that's gonna be more cost effective and efficient.
disintermediation. So
Yep.
back on stablecoins and again, on cryptocurrencies. So stablecoins share many of the same, if you want to call it, risks associated with cryptocurrencies, including those related to regulatory uncertainty and in some instances cybersecurity. So when it comes to trust, it's easier to trust a bank. They may take longer and such, but in general, consumers typically have more trust in banks. How can consumer value be protected in this crypto/stablecoin alternative?
Yeah. So good question. The space is getting more and more regulated. Um, any projects that launched in, I would say before 2017, 2016, around there was no regulations. So that is one of the reasons why we're seeing a lot of news about SEC busting, ICO, initial coin offering projects, and those projects having to pay a good amount of fine to the SEC, right? But the space is getting more and more regulated. I think in a good way, because the government knows that we cannot stop the blockchain revolution. So they're trying to figure out a way to really protect customer assets and protect or have a more of a robust transaction monitoring system in place, so that bad actors cannot use these asset class for money laundering purposes or whatnot. So for us, being regulated is a very good indication that you can basically trust us. We're operating as a mini bank, and a lot of the stablecoin issuers have to be licensed in order for them to issue a fiat-backed stablecoin, and that's where all the regulators are going. New York is a obvious one. There's no regulation in Japan right now, but they are carefully assessing how they would regulate it. I would assume you would have to have some sort of a banking license to get into the space. And in the United States, OCC has given a green light to the stablecoin usage by the banks. So banks are getting involved in this space. For example, BNY, Bank of New York Mellon, they are entering a custody business where they would custody your cryptocurrencies, and they would basically manage the private keys for you. So just acting just like a bank account for cryptocurrencies. So
they take on the risk.
Yeah, so there will be more and more reputable firms getting into the space, and if you trust the bank, if the bank has a custody solution for cryptocurrencies, why don't you just rely on those banks to manage your asset for you?
So before I go on to the next question, you'll hear this quite a bit in the crypto space. Not your keys, not your crypto. So if the bank is custodying your asset, where does that leave you? Is it more of you're relaying the trust over to the bank, and they'll take care of it. It's covered by FDIC up to $250,000 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the out? Is that where it would play a part?
Yeah, I think so. As a regulated company, our customer assets always have to be in a FDIC insured bank account. And on the cryptocurrency side, we do have the ability to we have the proper license to do so. We are actively looking into a solution there. And, there is a possibility that we will get into the custody business and also being a stablecoin issuer. Like if you look at Gemini, for example, they're in the crypto exchange business. They're the issuer of a US dollar backed stablecoin. They're a custodian of cryptocurrencies, right? So these are all the things that a New York limited purpose trust company can do. And, because we are an internet company and a technology company at heart, we have a high confidence on, fighting against cyber attacks. And, we are very experienced in that sense. So, yeah.
So in order to, get your license out of New York, you had to have gone through many regulatory hoops, and anyone going in that space, should be prepared to, if, for instance, you wanted to have license out of New York. So, what are some of the moral, legal, ethical, and compliance issues the finance industry should be considering when it comes to tokenized assets? Not necessarily just New York, but globally.
Howard, sorry, the second half of your question, you were a little bit breaking off. So, sorry, can you repeat that again?
Yeah. So, what are some of the compliance issues the financial industry should be considering when it comes to tokenized assets?
Yeah. There's two big pieces. Like you mentioned earlier, cybersecurity is a big piece to that. And then, most importantly, anti-money laundering program is the biggest piece that, regulators generally look into. It doesn't, not just New York, but I would say, any regulators across the globe. So we are required to have a, financial or a bank level operational policies and procedures to, number one, protect customer assets from cyber attacks or any other fraudulent activities, and then, fighting against, financial terrorists to prevent any money laundering activities. So these are a combination of, the program on paper and the actual execution using, a lot of great tools out there in the market. For example, there's a transaction monitoring tool specifically designed to monitor the activities of the cryptocurrency movements from one wallet to another. And they also have, flag sanction. They flag wallet addresses that are sanctioned or, or have been sanctioned in the past. So we have a good visibility into those activities, and, having the ability to report to the regulators if we see something strange, right? So those are all the things that regulated companies are required to do. And we have the oversight from, NYDFS, who has been regulating stablecoin for over 2 years now, and they have, very deep expertise into this space. So, having that proper oversight from the regulator is also a good thing for us. And, operationally, many people, well, it is true, but I think many people have think that regulated companies have to go through a lot of, audits from the regulators, and, we have to spend a lot of time there. But I think overall, it's for the customer's benefit, right? So, more and more regulated entities in the space, the better.
Agreed. So I'll pivot to maybe payments and remittance in a little bit, but I'll allow Vitalis to take it from here, and maybe audience questions as well.
Absolutely, Howard. Thank you so much. Regulatory. I mean, I cannot hear enough of that word. And Mr. Lekan here just comment. Mr. Lekan out of I think it's Abuja or Lagos, Nigeria, and he said that the reason why the banks in Nigeria are afraid is because of the level of fraud and lack of regulatory framework in that case. So just confirming what you've said. And there's a follow-up question from Charlie, and Charlie had asked a question earlier about leveraging stable coins to fund infrastructure and development, and you did respond to that. And so she has a follow-up question, which she says, assuming the corporations are willing to explore the possibility of using stable coins for their projects, what will be the advice that you would give as a guide to achieving this?
Well, I guess I hate to just repeat myself like a broken record, but I think educating yourself is the very first thing you need to do. A lot of times, I've had personal experience of losing about 600 ETH tokens, so Ethereum native tokens, which is now it's valued at around 600 ETH is probably like $1 million, right? So I had a personal experience losing that for being stupid, not being not educating myself enough. Losing a private key to your wallet means you lose everything. Banks are not protecting your asset if you're managing your own keys, right? So if you're gonna accept cryptocurrencies, including stablecoin, you have to really know how to manage these private keys securely, and basically just learn about how you have to manage those. So that's the biggest advice I would probably give.
Yeah, hopefully it didn't scare anyone too much, but you could use exchanges as well. You basically give them the control and have them manage that for you, I suppose.
Right. Yeah. So my personal experience was back in 2016 when I first got into crypto, and I was confident enough, and I thought I was educated enough to be able to handle all these private keys and wallet by myself, but obviously not. So
so outside of custodial solutions, there should be institutions out there to help those who are not as versed. Are you aware of any such facilities?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at wallet providers like, for example, blockchain.com or BRD wallet, those are one of few of the companies that has a robust security system where you would just basically download the mobile application onto your smartphone and create your own password and set up all the 2FA security, etc. They'll manage it for you. So going to one of those providers is a good option. And of course, if you trust the crypto exchanges enough, that you can use them as sort of your wallet, right? So that's one other option.
I was just bringing that forward as an alternative to trying to figure it out all on your own and learn as you go along, which might not necessarily be the best option, but having help, trusted help.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you. And I just want to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Eric Kaigama. And Eric Kaigama is the CEO and president of the Africa Chamber of Digital Commerce. And he was here with us in the audience, and he has.
Yeah, I was enjoying the.
Before you get to that, Eric, I just want to let our audience know that I've upgraded, the ask your question feature now, which is you can actually raise your hand, and we'll give you the opportunity to come on stage and be able to ask your questions directly to Ken, and maybe have an interaction with him as well. So please feel free to raise your hand, and we'll get you up on stage. Or you can just put those questions in there, and we'll get to them right away. Keep the comments going. Share what is going on here. We're streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube. Please share it out because, again, as Mr. Ken has said, we got to educate. We got to be able to send out this wealth of information to as many people as possible in our community, so we can better educate ourselves so we can take advantage of what is happening in the space. So thank you very much again for being with us here. And Mr. Eric, you have the microphone.
Thank you. I was absolutely enjoying the whole, like engagement. Ken and I first want to thank you for being generous with your time. I know you're an incredibly, like busy, man, and also Howard Anglin, and also Vitalis as well. And so it's unfortunate, Kate is not here, but we still appreciate all the things she has done prior to. Sometimes, the traffic in Nairobi, strikes, right? And what else can you do? But we're still appreciative of what amazing thing, she's done, behind the scenes. And my question is, Mr. Ken and I did touch on it. I think when we were doing the dry run, was the immigrant community within North America is a very gigantic, like community, and um, and I think every day, especially when it comes to remittances and stuff, we're constantly sending sending funds, home, or even doing involving import, exports, especially buying, goods and sending, overseas. That means anything that has to do with finances and also the financial system. It's important that we understand the things that are emerging, so that we can plug in. And I know on the continent itself, there a huge population. We're talking about millions of experts that call Africa home, and also in addition to the natives as well. And if you look at the immigrant community, especially the African immigrant community in the United States or North America, it's we're talking about a full representation of about 55 countries. So that's pretty huge. And that community is responsible for close to about $70 billion of worth of remittances every year. So for every business, anybody that's in finance or even a layman, that's significantly a huge number, and something that people, especially within core within the blockchain, and also even to a certain extent, crypto and other use cases, cannot ignore. And we feel like the immigrant community, especially in North America, will serve as a gateway to the continent itself, because within North America, resides, a huge, purchasing power. And part of what we, as an organization, what we focus on doing is to advocate for things that are emerging, to educate our people and say, okay, how can we adopt or craft it to work for our people? And that is why we bring in people that are well versed in this either in this phase, just like we did, the last time we brought in one of our, we talked about the subject was neurosciences and AI, and we brought in the likes of Professor Ayeni, to talk about a neurosurgeon, and to talk about the intersectionality and all that other stuff. But back to today's conversation. So why should the huge millions and millions of people of African descent, especially African immigrants, especially in North America, why should they pay close attention to the stablecoin as one of those really important emerging concepts, within the banking system in North America, or even globally to a certain extent? Thank you.
Yeah, I think the entire world is shifting towards more and more digitization. So and it can either be sort of like e-money, where for example, China's been using e-money for decades now, and as far as I'm aware of, Africa is in the forefront of mobile payments. Instead of using credit cards, you guys are very used to using M-Pesa for payments, right? Yeah. So, you're already ahead of the curve in terms of digitized payments and mobile application payments, right? Mm-hmm. So I think the blockchain space, the blockchain payments, will be something similar, where if you have access to the internet, and if you have one single mobile phone, and you can basically transact just with a QR code scan, or just sending each other the wallet address and just one click and send, right? So, and as long as far as you guys, you're already familiar with all these processes, it's just a matter of it's just going to be a different asset and a different technology, but the user experience from these cryptocurrency usage will be something similar in the future. I think there's a lot more development that's needed in the ecosystem, but ultimately where this is going is a seamless, intuitive payment mechanism.
Absolutely. And Vitalis, we can oblige me before I run kind of a follow-up question. And I did watch your interview with Alex and of Celsius, and which was pretty interesting. And I was thinking, I was like, possibly the way the legacy system, is now fast evolving, and we're talking about different types of, from fintech and other types of banking that are emerging. We could significantly see an integration of, let's say, some of our banking features that could have, an embedded, let's say, GN or any of the GMOs, let's say stablecoin, and also sell within our application. It's a discussion probably we're going to have after this, but these things that we're seeing individually, we're most likely. Do you think they're going to become, kind of a standardized, mainstream, features in our banking applications, you think? And with that, before you answer, I want to thank you all, and I know I got to exit and allow this as well. I don't want to be too greedy.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Vitalis and Howard, and I'll let Ken, answer when I exit. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I think it's. Yeah, I do see a future where it's going to be the new norm. Celsius is doing a great job of unbanking people. Like cryptocurrencies most of us probably in this ecosystem think the same way, but we're trying to support the unbanked, underbanked people. But what Celsius is doing is they're trying to unbank the banked people. Which means that more and more wealthy people, once they realize, what they can get from these platforms and these service providers, they will come to realize that, having your money in a bank account doesn't really mean anything, right? And all the smart people out there probably feel the same way. So banks are threatened by these companies. And I think there will be a future where, banks like forward-thinking banks such as Bank of New York Mellon would, for example, go to Celsius and say, hey, we want to sort of white label your solution and offer the service to their customer base. That could be a possibility, right? And I don't see any reason why banks would not do that. It's just a value add. People having fiat currency, and if whatever the amount that's comfortable for the customers, they would just convert it into stablecoin or cryptocurrency and have it within the same bank account. But it's just a matter of it's a bank account or a custody wallet address that the bank managed for you. So if we get these options, that personally that would be a win for me. I just want to be able to manage my asset with a trusted bank or a trusted company, and just earn yield from it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ken. I just want to acknowledge the presence of Kate Q. Kate is with us now. And welcome, Kate.
Hey.
And,
Nairobi traffic is awful, and turns out AirMeet doesn't work well on mobile. And even if it did, sound would have been weird, but really appreciate it. Yeah, I got to listen, at least in the car, and got here my home office.
Before I get to Salisu Uba, for those of you who don't know Kate is a full stack software engineer with a passion for all things agriculture. She has degree in food systems from the University of Minnesota, my home state, and has been working as a software engineer since then. She is the CEO of Motivo, a company that documents title deeds on the blockchain around the world. So thank you for joining us again, Ken, Kate, and Ken is thrilled again to be here with us. And we have actually asked Ken a bunch of your questions, very intriguing. So thank you for sending them forward. And before we come back to you, Kate, and for you to just take some time and settle down, I'll give Mr. Salisu that I've just invited to come on stage and interact with Ken the microphone. Mr. Salisu is a researcher at the University of Strathclyde. I hope I said that right, in Glasgow, in the United Kingdom. Mr. Salisu, welcome on stage.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
Unfortunately, I don't know what is happening. I don't know if you can see me, but it seems I'm not getting the settings right.
Okay.
It's quite a pleasure to join you guys this evening. Ken, you have given us a fantastic presentation and, of course, discussion around the almighty blockchain area. I mean, there's so many conversations around blockchain, and one of the top concerns that I have had, not just had, but I've researched over the last 2 years or so, is around regulation and regulatory framework. And I like the fact that you have discussed this thoroughly and you have looked at it from the perspective of users and, of course, the government and indeed the business. I am currently working on a research project that is looking at the perception of stakeholders around blockchain adoption in the oil and gas supply chain. One of the key findings, and this is quite interesting because I have followed carefully your discussions, and obviously awareness, knowledge, and understanding is key. And this is really important because you may tend to see that the blockchain enthusiasts think that they know it all. They have the understanding of the technology, the business model, and the ecosystem. But that's not really the case. So one of the major concerns of the stakeholders, particularly in the oil and gas industry, is around the knowledge, awareness, and understanding of the technology, even among the promoters of the technology. That's number one. Number two, internet infrastructure and connectivity. This is really key because the legacy system seems to be working for them, even though with some significant challenges, mostly from people coming outside the industry, always thinking that there are better ways to do things, and perhaps they have their own solutions to probably save cost, increase transparency, visibility, and all of that. But it's really important for the stakeholders looking at it from the point of view of, are you asking us to improve on our internet connectivity before we get this technology? What about the infrastructure that we have? How do we interconnect? That's the issue of compatibility around what we currently have. And above all, we have to look at the leadership. How do we integrate all these things? So this brought us to the idea of having more or less a consortium blockchain. Not just blockchain consortium, but of course having a broader view about the technology adoption. And this is something that most of the blockchain developers or companies or users are not really looking into. They don't give emphasis on the technology adoption models, but rather developing a solution, marketing the solution. But purposely looking at the organizational, both internal and external, is really missing around the link. I have done an interviews, I've conducted so many surveys, and this is authoritatively talking to you from the point of view of research. So the point I'm trying to make is that an avenue like this is really important to talk, highlight the issues and see what different background of individuals can bring on board in order to shape the understanding of this potential technology. No doubt blockchain is going to be a game changer, but we don't know what is going to happen and how that is going to happen. But at least what we do know at the moment is we are still at the early stage of this technology. We are trying to understand the technology and of course see the potential with open eyes. So thank you very much, Ken, for this wonderful outing, and sincere appreciation to Vitalis and Howard as well. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Salisu, for your comment. And I'll give Ken the opportunity to respond. Thank you.
Yeah, I think all of that is a good point. Go ahead, Kate.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in because this might be a little out of the area of stablecoins and more into the infrastructure and adoption in Africa, which I believe I can somewhat answer. And so, I'd love to talk more. I have, quite a few papers, not authored, but read at least on this subject. And one thing you'll find is that if they have, at least in the town center or village center connection, people don't necessarily need connection 100% coverage for certain technologies, but people have to build apps in different ways. So, for example, in Mobineo, we have, he's gone. Okay. So, example, in Mobineo, offline usage is super important for us. And we know there's not coverage everywhere, right? So if you're documenting land in the middle of a rural area, you have to have offline usage, which a lot of apps in the US that come from the US just don't account for. But once you account for that, people make things work. You don't need every single inch covered, but you do need enough to, at least someone can get access. Same thing as electricity isn't 100% coverage. A lot of people still don't have electricity in their homes, but they will go to the town center and there'll be charging stations that they can use, and M-Pesa stations here in Kenya. We'd love it to be, I think everyone would love that to be a lot better and a lot more convenient, but it isn't impossible as it stands. Sorry, go right ahead.
No, good point, Kate. And I think you don't, as Kate mentioned, you don't always have to have 100% capacity of internet. But there's the technology is evolving. All of us, including in this panel discussion, all of us are learning as we go. And there's more and more cool stuff happening. For example, all of the cryptocurrency transactions don't necessarily have to be on chain. Meaning, you can leverage a side chain. We call the side chain, where you can transact more efficiently and sort of bring that on back to the on chain when it hits certain threshold. So there's going to be more and more efficiency around transacting on top of blockchain, and it's just going to keep on evolving. And all of just participating in this ecosystem just have to be open-minded and just accept the fact that these new technologies can potentially threat your existing business or whatever you're trying to protect, but you have to be open-minded and be able to adapt to the new environment.
Good. Howard?
Yes. So great points, and thank you, Vitalis. So going back to the continent of Africa for a little bit here, Ken, do you foresee an AU, Africa Union-backed digital asset, most likely a fiat-backed one, a fiat-backed stablecoin, consisting of maybe a basket of national currencies, since from my understanding, CBDC would require a unified currency. So, do you foresee such a thing? A fiat-backed stablecoin out of the AU, consisting of a basket of national currencies.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little too early for us to speculate on what the government will do. However, I do think, well, specifically for Africa, I'm not sure how much of a development going on at the government level. But for example, if you look at the smaller countries in Southeast Asia, such as Cambodia, for example, Cambodia, they're already start utilizing their own CBDC. The blockchain behind it, the infrastructure was built by a Japanese company, but I believe Cambodia was the very first to really actually start utilizing CBDCs. And I think there's going to be more and more countries, like China is a good example. I think they're going to be in the next one coming into the market. Many countries in Europe, they're exploring. Japan has started exploring. And the question is, will they actually push that out to the market, to the retail, to the end users? That's unknown, right? They're starting to look into these technologies just because they don't want to lag behind. Some people see it as a sort of a race into the CBDC and these technology as a government. I mean,
yeah, it's all speculative,
we'll have to see where
but
but in short, I think, in the long run, I think there will be a future where all the CBDCs from across the globe will be pushed out to the market.
So by the way,
the answer is yes.
Thank you. So by the way, how are CBDCs or central bank digital currencies different than stablecoins, and how are they similar? For those who are curious.
Yeah, so I guess CBDCs that are issued on top of the blockchain, I don't see much difference. It's pretty much the same, but it's just backed by the Fed, right? Or by the central bank. So in terms of like technology, the same. The way it's going to be used is probably going to be the same. But I think, even if the country has a CBDC already in place, I think there's going to be an opportunity for stablecoin issuers to work together, or even if you're not a stablecoin issuer, if you're a fintech company, or if you're in the financial space, I think there is a future where all these, the central bank will open up a window so that any licensed fintech companies can have access to the central bank and sort of distribute the CBDC to the end users. The governments are not always good at the distribution to the end users, right? Traditionally, the banks are the ones distributing it to the customers, not the central bank directly, right? So I think there's going to be a lot more connectivity to the central banks by private firms.
Got it. So I have one more question, and I'll turn it over to Kate. So coming back to the issue of trust, I know we touched on that a bit earlier. One, stablecoins have a centralized nature compared to Bitcoin, and have a similar regulatory requirement as fiat. So still fiat in many ways, right? Just electronic form. So many will still embrace crypto as an alternative. So if fiat, for example, devalues due to inflation or hyperinflation, you're sort of out of luck. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it is essentially a digitized fiat. So by owning a stable coin doesn't really protect you from global inflation. So I think,
Mm-hmm.
if you're a believer of cryptocurrencies, I think the Bitcoin is the way to go. And how stablecoins can be utilized is just basically a transfer of value near instantaneously. Whereas in the legacy system, it's a few days and massive fees.
Right.
So you can just leverage stablecoin for efficiency purpose.
For efficiency purposes, yeah. So one of the reasons why that came up, I have a pile of money here. So currencies from all over the world, right? The naira, you have yen, yuan and yen, and for instance, this bolivar, from Venezuela, right? It won't come up well because of my green screen thing going on here. So many many of you may know that the bolivar, I think it had in 2019 350,000% rate of inflation. So if they had tied their currency, this one is a 50 bolivar note. It's worthless. They have I think $500 million notes now. So this is like not even worth the paper it's on, right? The paper is worth more. So what do you have to say about a situation like that?
Yeah, I mean that's why Bitcoin exists, right? So not only, I mean, if you look at Argentina, for example, they had some sort of a similar type of inflation, and many people losing trust in the sovereign currencies. So I don't have a personal experience, but what I hear from people traveling to South American regions, people prefer to own Bitcoin over their or over their own currency, right? And that's starting to happen especially in the emerging markets, and that makes a lot of sense. And even for an established companies, a lot of the treasury departments are starting to look into these asset class just to protect the company from the devaluation of whatever the currency they're holding in the treasury. So I think this is just going to accelerate more and more, and you just have to understand the macro economy aspect and what kind of risk you're exposed to.
Thank you, Kate.
Yeah. Did you want me to pose a question or?
Oh yes. In case you do have additional ones that we didn't cover.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of what I wanted to cover is covered. I'll just let you take, the questions.
Yeah. And before we go into the next one, just another piece here on
Howard, if you don't mind, Howard, we have a few questions pending in the audience. You mind if we can kind of
go ahead.
Please, thank you. Appreciate that. And this is from Dr. Silvanus Ayeni. He is a Pan-African children advocacy leader, and he runs a nonprofit. He's retired right now. And I think Eric mentioned him. He was our last guest talking about, the intersection between AI and neuroscience. Yes. And he says many African countries have very volatile currencies. Since stablecoins are pegged to stable traditional fiat currencies like the US dollar and other Western currencies, how can African nations operate in this space without competitive disadvantage?
I mean, I think any companies can come up with currency pegged stablecoin, and I believe, Howard, there's a Naira stablecoin that's public that is issued by a private company in Africa, right? So the more reputable companies that's issuing their own the African currency stablecoin, there is an entrance to the market, right? And also, one important point is that I think Binance covers a lot of on-ramp and off-ramp of fiat currencies. I think Nigerian Naira is one of them. And there's going to be a lot more venue where you can basically convert back and forth between the fiat currency and stable coins and cryptocurrencies. And I think it doesn't really matter whether it's a U.S. dollar or I don't even. It is a Western market dominated market size. The stablecoin is mostly dominated by the U.S. dollar, but I think it's gonna be more diversified as the entire ecosystem matures.
Mm. Thank you for that response. And then one more from Chalia, and this is her third question to you. And she asks, at what point do you think Africa would be ready to house a Bitcoin or a stablecoin mining facility? What are some of the hindrances or some of the impediments to that?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the government's policy on Bitcoin mining, but generally speaking, I think the biggest thing for the miners is the cost of electricity. So I think a fair electricity cost per kilowatt hour it has to be below, I would say, 10 cents to be competitive. I think in the Nordics region, it's around 6 cents, 7 cents. And there are, markets like, for example, some regions in China, some states in the United States that can do below 3 cents or 4 cents per kilowatt hour. So that's the biggest piece. If there's enough clean energy that Africa can produce, and pass it on to the miners for a very cheap price, that can move the needle. And the second most important piece is the temperature, right? Obviously, these mining rigs produces a lot of heat, and it has to be there has to be like a sort of a cooling system so that these mining rigs does not break. So if we can build a facility that can sort of flow, take all the air out from the facility and take in colder air from somewhere, that's something important as well.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Salisu, who was on stage earlier, had some questions about around regulation. And he was on stage and didn't follow up with those. So I'm assuming that your lengthy response on and discussion around that subject probably answered those questions. And there's a non-blockchain related question from Mr. Eric Kagama, and he's asking if you are a baseball or soccer guy.
I'm a soccer guy. I've been playing soccer since 8, and I played until I graduated high school. So I played for over 10 years, and yeah, I'm a soccer guy.
All right.
Not football, soccer.
Yeah.
Or is it soccer or not football? Depending on where you are.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so, I think I've exhausted most of my questions. One that I just thought of has to do with the nature of stablecoins, right? It's either backed by fiat, could be algorithmically backed, or by some kind of commodity like gold or whatever. So, back to the African context, could the mining industry create a stablecoin, or a gold back or gold ore back or some other mineral backed stablecoin as a means for trade? Since I think like 50% of the trade out of Africa is mineral or related to the mineral industry.
Yeah, I think you can basically do, if you have the creativity, you can basically do anything with these asset class and the technology, right? And just pivoting away just a little bit from a stable coin, but there are NFT, the non-fungible tokens. This market is evolving and getting a lot of traction recently. And Africa has a very unique economy where I think there's a lot of artists in Africa, you can tokenize yourself, you can tokenize your content, you can tokenize whatever using the blockchain technology. So there's a lot of good development in the ecosystem, and getting ahead of the curve in that to that front is very important for not only Africa but for any countries.
So is GMOZ getting into that space? NFTs?
GMO, we are getting into that space. We are currently building a NFT marketplace. Just starting with Japan, the Japanese market. We just really want to protect the content holders. For example, in the music industry, all these music gets copied, gets distributed for free, and the creators don't get anything, right? So I think NFTs can protect these content creators, not only musicians, but artists all around the globe. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Vitalis?
Thanks, Howard. We got about 4 more minutes to go here, and wow, man, you've been so great answering all the questions right on point.
Absolutely.
I feel like I'm just gonna. I can call myself a tech guy, But that said,
never too late.
Never too late. Absolutely. This is the African Chamber of Digital Commerce, and we are so grateful for you coming on board and be able to grace us with your wealth of knowledge and experience. We really do appreciate that. We exist as a group of Pan Africanists that are passionate about making a change on the continent and African diaspora. We feel like we can use technology to be able to influence policy, influence financial access, if you will, and also to see how we can build infrastructure and industry that will benefit the common man. We're talking about the layman back in the village that is struggling to just maybe get the basics right, which is food, shelter, healthcare, those kind of things. So that's why we exist, and we think that using emerging technology will be the answer to be able to accelerate that kind of change, and that's why we're here. And we feel like you, as a leader in that industry and as the leaders of the world, as a matter of fact, will be able to play a very pivotal and instrumental role for us, and that's why we're reaching out to people like you with the understanding that we're going to have to lean sometime on your shoulders to get that extra boost so we can get there. So we appreciate you, and I'm just wondering if you are wondering anything about the chamber. Is there any question that you have for us that maybe we can try to answer that and maybe give you more understanding and perspective about who we are and what we're trying to do here?
No, I think I have a good understanding, and I really appreciate you guys for having me today. And it's been a fun conversation, and looking forward to seeing you guys soon.
Absolutely. And with that said, I'm gonna let just give a closing remarks from Howard and also from Kate. Howard.
No, great. This was a great conversation, and thank you so much. I know, it's an hour and a half went by so quickly. I know what it feels like to be on stage, whether it's in person or on Zoom or AirMeet, to be, speaking for an hour and a half. So I really appreciate that, taking time out, from your busy schedule to interact with us. So thanks again, Ken.
Thank you.
Yeah, so when I was first listening, and it was cutting in and out because of the connection. So I don't know if this was mentioned, but I think one point just for the audience is a lot of us, or me, a lot of the audience right now is, expats or part of the diaspora of Africa and sending money back in remittances. I think people in that category have a really responsibility and opportunity to educate themselves on cryptocurrency and how it can help the economy. And if you're giving remittance back in cryptocurrency, you have people that trust you. And so educating yourself on that topic, and, maybe that is kind of a spark to get it across the rest of the economy, I think is a really important place to be. So Yeah, do your own research, yeah, and make sure you know it well.
Thank you very much, Kate. And thank you, Howard. And to you, Ken, thank you for your time, for your patience, and for your honesty in giving us some very good information there. And to our audience, thank you very much for joining us today for another Concept Lab edition, Fireside Chat. We hope that this was beneficial to you and that you may be able to take something there to benefit your life, to impact what you're doing, and please go out and educate your friends, your community, your co-workers, everybody else. I think that education is something that we all have to take as an obligation, because that's the trajectory in which the world is going right now. And as Africans in diaspora, it is even more imperative for us to take on that challenge, because obviously we're lagging behind, right? If we want to do that leapfrogging, we will need to be able to kind of get in there and dig in. And so this is our opportunity. So let's not let that slide by. And the chamber is here to help in whatever capacity you may need. Thank you again, Ken. We will be in touch with you and follow up with you. Obviously, we are checking you out and everything you're doing, because we're very interested in what you're doing. Until next time, I want to say you all have a great week.